the presentation. Thank you. All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience. We have been, there have been some Microsoft Team issues, but we are, I think, up and running now, and I think everyone can see my presentation. So I'm going to quickly run through our agenda for this morning. My name is Rachel Koffenstein. I am a senior environmental scientist with the Delta Stewardship Council's Delta Science program. I'm in the Collaborative Science and Peer Review unit, which is the unit that has been leading the effort to update the Science Action Agenda. I'm going to quickly, speaking of agendas, I'm going to quickly run through the agenda for today. You're going to hear that word a lot. And then we're going to get some opening remarks from folks in the science program. And I just, before really running through this, I just want to acknowledge the very busy schedules right now, challenging times, and just really underscore our appreciation for you all being here today. I hope that you and your loved ones are safe and well right now. So, and I just also want to say to our, bear with us with doing this particular workshop online, but I'm really excited. So today's agenda, after we have some introductions and opening remarks, I'm going to run through the update to the Science Action Agenda, kind of our process overall, as well as what we've done with the management questions that have come to this workshop. And then we will have some breakout session instructions. I want to make sure that we all, have the same kind of message before we're going into the individual breakout sessions. But we're really excited to have this Delta, management questions workshop for the Science Action Agenda. And I think we're going to have Louise Conrad and Henry DeBay from the science program now give you a little bit of a reminder as to why we're here. So Henry and Louise, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Thank you, Rachel. Can you hear me, just to be sure?
Yep.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone. I am Louise Conrad. As Rachel just has mentioned, I am the Deputy Executive Officer for the Delta Science Program at the Delta Stewardship Council. We are very excited about today's Science Action Agenda Management Questions Workshop, and thank you for being here. As many of you know, the Science Action Agenda is one of the Delta Science Program's flagship documents for providing leadership in collaborative science. The document is used as a resource for our community to guide the direction of science in the Delta. To keep this document current and useful, it is updated every 4 to 5 years, and today's workshop is a key milestone in the collaborative process of completing this update. Fostering collaborative science governance in the Delta is fundamental to the Delta Science Program's mission, which is to provide the best possible science to inform water and environmental decision-making in the Delta. And at the Delta Science Program, we advance that mission by funding, communicating, coordinating, and synthesizing science. The Science Action Agenda encompasses many of these key functions because it provides a foundation for us and many of our partners to guide funding decisions, communicate management relevant science needs, shape strategic operations, and more. This wouldn't be possible without all of you, so again, thank you for being here. We are so lucky and grateful to be joined by experts and stakeholders from all across the estuary, from Delta tributaries to the Bay and everywhere in between. And to that point, at the Delta Science Program, we do have a vision for One Delta, One Science, which refers to an open Delta science community that works together to build a shared state of knowledge with the capacity to adapt and inform current and future water and environmental decisions in the Delta. That said, thanks to increasing collaborations and growing partnerships, it is increasingly more appropriate to refer to our vision as One Estuary, One Science. And that's how it should be, of course, because the San Francisco Estuary and the Delta is all one system. At this point, I am going to hand it over to Henry DeBay to say a bit more on behalf of the Delta Science Program. Thank you, Rachel and Henry.
Thanks, Louise. Good morning, everyone. I also hope that everyone is staying safe with everything that's happening around the state and around the world. So I'm Henry DeBay. I'm the Environmental Program Manager for the Collaborative Science and Peer Review Unit, which, as Rachel alluded to, is leading the development of the next Science Action Agenda. And as some of you know, I'm new to state government and new to the Delta, so the Science Action Agenda has really been the perfect crash course on all Delta relevant science and management issues. And I'm excited for the discussions later today. So the Science Action Agenda we're here to talk about is the second full iteration of its kind. And I think it's important to point out that we're doing things a bit differently this time around based on feedback from the Council's Delta Plan Interagency Implementation Committee, or DPIC. And in short, DPIC recommended that the science actions that we develop as part of this process be derived from key management questions relevant to the Delta and the broader estuary. So hence this workshop. And perhaps this new approach is the reason we've already seen increased interest in and input to the Science Action Agenda. And that's exactly how we hope for collaborative processes and documents to evolve, with increasing engagement, broader coverage of topics and issues, and ideally resulting in a more meaningful impact. Last but not least, on behalf of the Delta Science Program, I want to recognize that this workshop and all of the work leading up to this point would not be possible without all of you, from state and federal agencies, from local government, from water agencies, from California Native American tribes, from NGOs, academia, civil society, and including those of you that participated in our advisory committee, as well as everyone at the council, including our chair, Susan Tatayan, our new Delta lead scientist, Dr. Laurel Larson, and the leadership of our previous lead scientist, Dr. John Calloway, as well as our meeting services staff who are supporting today's logistics, our planning and science division staff who are facilitating and note-taking during the breakout sessions, and especially, a very big especially, to Rachel Klopfenstein, who has been expertly leading this effort. So thank you all so much for engaging in today's workshop, and I'm going to hand it back to Rachel for an overview of the update process and objectives for today's breakout sessions. Thank you.
I got so excited about agenda puns that I also forgot to run through the agenda. So I'm going to quickly do that, and also just say big thank you to Henry and Louise for the introduction today. But like I said, I'm going to quickly run through this update process, and then you'll each go into the breakout sessions for the 9 different management themes that we have today, as Henry just mentioned, facilitated by staff from the planning and science divisions with the council. And then after, in the afternoon, we're going to have a reporting out from each of the groups to see how things went, have a pretty short focused discussion, and then there'll be some exciting and important next steps. All right, now I'm gonna move on ahead. Great. So yeah, I just really want to reiterate how excited we are to host today's workshop. This has truly been, this has truly been, you know, a long-running effort and many months in the making. Can everybody still see the slides?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, thank you. And so, and this effort really has been many months in the making with tremendous effort from many of you along the way. Before we head into the breakout sessions, which will take up much of today's workshop time, I want to provide some background on the Science Action Agenda update, an overview of the pre-workshop feedback that we received, and then cover today's objectives, including the specific goals for the breakout sessions. As I mentioned, we are recording the plenary this morning and this afternoon, but not the breakout sessions. So really just a reminder of why we're here is part of the update to the 2022 to 2026 Science Action Agenda, which Henry and Louise just mentioned. And as we heard already, the Science Action Agenda really highlights the most pressing management needs across the Delta and outlines the science actions to help answer and address those questions and needs. The Science Action Agenda provides the science program and our partners across the enterprise with a collaboratively developed agenda to guide funding decisions in science planning. And I was actually just recently listening to one of the seminars for the Science Needs Assessment Workshop when Carl Wilcox at CDFW also mentioned how the Science Action Agenda helps to set the broader context for what science needs to be done overall. And I liked that. acknowledgement as well. So it's also worth noting that the Science Action Agenda is being developed in collaboration with the Science Needs Assessment Workshop, while the Science Action Agenda is, while the Science Action Agenda is focusing on the science needed now to address immediate management questions and to reduce uncertainties in Delta decision making, the Science Needs Assessment is looking at what science needs to begin now to meet the large-scale strategic management needs in the context of climate change and other rapid changes in the ecosystems. And these efforts are progressing simultaneously and in collaboration. And as you can see, there's a workshop that'll be hosted next week. And we're going to get a special announcement at the end of the day today from Amanda Bull with more information about all of that. So I'm now going to focus on our update process for the Science Action Agenda, which some of you have heard this presentation before, or did this part of the presentation. But the table here just shows our general process for updating the Science Action Agenda. Starting in the spring of this year, we did extensive outreach to collaborative groups across the Delta and the associated documents to get input on this list of management questions. And then earlier this summer, we asked for engagement from these collaborative groups, and we also asked for feedback on proposed criteria that we've used to assess management questions and for later science actions. We also released a public survey. And then later, in our process, after we have this workshop today and we ultimately post this list of top management questions, we're later going to identify management needs, science actions. There will be a workshop for that. And then we'll start to circulate a draft in summer of 2021. And overall, through this effort, we are really asking for participation throughout the process to ensure that the update follows a collaborative, robust, and transparent process. And as has been mentioned, this update for the Science Action Agenda will include management needs and science actions, as did the previous or current iteration. But this time we're starting with a broad list of management questions to better ensure that science actions inform and are most relevant to policy and management. This approach is being taken in response to the priority actions recommended in the 2019 Delta Science Funding and Governance Initiative, which was facilitated and endorsed by the DPIC, or Delta Plan Interagency Implementation Committee. And just as defined, management questions target uncertainty around a given management action or topic, tend to be specific to a single agency or set of agencies and organizations, but do generally have enterprise-wide application, and when answered, provide information that will inform management needs. And this kind of tiered graphic here shows how management questions fit within the broader management needs and connect to science actions. Overall, through this process, we've received tremendous engagement. We have interacted and engaged with nearly 30 collaborative groups and reviewed about that many documents. Managers, scientists, and stakeholders through this process submitted nearly 1,280 questions. We also formed an advisory committee of participants from the Science Funding and Governance Initiative to help in our process. And overall, we see this as an indication of the value and broad support for this management questions effort, as well as the update to the Science Action Agenda. And in addition to requesting management questions, we also asked for input on the process and asked for some feedback on the current Science Action Agenda. That was through this online survey that was available in June and early July. I'm going to highlight some of the results here. First, most respondents were very or somewhat familiar with the Science Action Agenda. About 2/3 were they agreed or strongly agreed that the Science Action Agenda is really kind of meeting its objective of organizing and catalyzing scientific actions to address priority management needs in the Delta. When asked, how do you or your organization use the current 2017 to 2021 Science Action Agenda? The top answer was to create partnerships and collaborations. But others mentioned that it's used for informing research and monitoring design, prioritizing funding. And then we also asked, trying to get input on this management question process, we also asked how many questions folks would like to see represented on this top list of questions. And nearly half of the responses were to have 5 to 10 per management theme. Others said, decide at the workshop. They didn't have a target number. But either way, we used much of this feedback from the survey and the discussions along the way in helping us inform our process and prepare for this workshop. And so I now quickly want to run through the process of bringing questions to the workshop today. 1,279 questions were submitted, and this table kind of walks through all this. 1,279 questions were compiled from group meetings, documents, and via the public survey. Using our definitions of science actions, management needs, and management questions, we removed 12 as not fitting the management question definition. We didn't really remove them. We sort of were tracking it all. There were more science actions, and we've tabled those. And then when we then applied our criteria that was publicly reviewed between April and July of this year to screen the questions. So we screened all 1,200 or so of them. And in that process, we removed 14. And then 3 main components of that screening criteria was that the management question wasn't fully addressed yet, that it was applicable to Delta management and policy, which we took a broad approach with that, broad perspective, and then that it was feasible in the sense that it could be answered by 1 or more science actions. We then sorted those remaining 1,253 questions into 8 themes, management themes based on the monitoring enterprise review and the science needs assessment briefing paper, noting which ones also didn't fit quite cleanly into those different themes. And we quickly realized that many of the questions didn't apply to just one group, and determined that the most fair approach would be to add that question to multiple themes. So if you saw the same exact question that was in water quality and in habitat, there were a couple of instances where we put the question into both. At this stage, we also added a science governance theme. We merged land use and flood management, and we split up the native species theme into 2. And along this way, we were getting input from our advisory committee on how to proceed. After sorting by theme, which again, sort of expanded the number of questions to 1,335, we then went through the process for all of them to merge similar questions within themes. And our goal at this stage was simply to reduce redundancies and duplication. We did not want to use, just use our discretion, meaning science program staff in the collaborative science and peer review unit to use our discretion to combine like questions, or for example, binning a specific question under a broader one. We really just tried to remove the essentially duplications in this. And as a result, we removed 154 questions. And that left us with 1,181 management questions organized into 9 different themes. And the table here shows the breakdown by management theme, with some having as low as 60 and some having up to 249 questions. And this is where you come in. Given the sheer number of management questions, we quickly realized that a workshop would not be the only way to receive adequate feedback, meaning having just in-person conversation would not be the only way to receive adequate input to update this list of questions, while ensuring that we followed the kind of robust, collaborative, transparent, and democratic process that we wanted to. So huge thank you for all of the input. We asked participants, everyone who had registered for the workshop, to do pre-workshop rating of the value of each question to help us streamline our efforts today, and also this overall process of creating this top list of questions. We asked that participants spend a couple of hours, and according to the survey results, folks did. So huge thank you. We got 53 survey responses, which I think is really tremendous. And by sub-theme, of which there are 45 sub-themes that our questions are organized into across the 9 management themes, the lowest number of reviewers per sub-theme was 6, and the highest 31. So no questions were skipped entirely, and all received at least 5 ratings. So I think that this was tremendous input, and it's truly helping us with the workshop today and getting us really close to actually be able to produce some sort of top list of questions. We also circulated the full list of questions for written feedback, and we received some across the different themes. And again, all of this input being gathered is to help us streamline and focus our efforts today and then the next steps following. And just really focusing in on the purpose of today's workshop, it's just to facilitate collaborative and consensus-based discussion around the list of management questions by theme. We will provide, I'll give an update. I'll provide some additional details this afternoon about next steps, but following today's workshop, we, the science program staff, will update the list of questions. We still plan to circulate a much shorter list of post-workshop materials for additional input. But our hope here overall is to post a manageable short list of top Delta management questions around the order of 100 later this fall. And then a subset of these questions will be selected based on criteria for incorporation into the 2022 to 2026 Science Action Agenda. Now, specifically for the breakout sessions of today, time permitting, breakout groups will edit, merge, and prioritize the list of questions per theme. The pre-workshop ratings of questions and the written feedback will help to streamline today's sessions, and some specific goals, which will be covered again in the breakout sessions, really to try to eliminate questions that have, for example, very low support from voting, but with consensus from the group in the room. Reading, discussing, and commenting on as many questions as possible, time permitting. And then considering, based on how the progress goes, what's the ideal number of questions that you can achieve by this theme? Some might say, let's get it to 5, and others might be hard pressed to have under 10. But we're really trying to put some limits of between 5 and 10, no more than 15 per theme. And just as a reminder, we have 9 different breakout sessions, each with a different number of management questions and participants today. While the approach to distilling questions may vary slightly within each of the rooms, virtual rooms, the goal remains the same: to receive adequate collaborative input on the priority questions for the science program staff to move forward with really whittling down and refining this list much further. Breakout sessions are scheduled today from 9:25 until noon, with the option of a working lunch if needed. As I mentioned, some of the groups have almost 250 questions, so they might have to spend a little bit more time. And then breakout sessions, as Henry mentioned already, breakout sessions will be facilitated by a member of the Delta Stewardship Council staff from our planning and science divisions. And there will also be a note taker from the council. And I just really want to give a huge shout out to all of them, and we'll thank them again later, but they have put a tremendous amount of work into helping to organize and think through the breakout session distillation process. So thank you all. Before I see if there are any questions and then send you off to the breakout groups, I want to quickly cover some just ground rules. Basically, I hope that folks are excited for today. I'm excited for today. I think it's going to be great. But just some quick things to remember, which I think will be reiterated in the breakout sessions, is just listen to each other. If you're speaking a lot, let others chime in, or if you haven't been speaking up, do so. We want this to be collaborative. That said, be concise. We have a lot to cover today. And then, stay open, have fun with this. And yes, there's a ton going on in the world right now, but we're encouraging folks to be present with the breakout sessions as well as you can. And then again, I just want to remind you, if there are any technical issues that you have, here's the contact information. I encourage you to write it down. You can contact our council staff that are helping kind of behind the scenes today. There's this email here or a phone number. So are there any general questions before heading to the breakout sessions? Please enter either the question or your name into the chat. Also, if the chat doesn't work, you can email. But Lita, do we have any or Brandon, do we have any questions at this time?
There's no questions right now.
Okay, thanks. And I'm going to switch the slide here. And if you guys have questions still, feel free to type those in the chat. But I just want to have, one more reminder is that there are individual links for the breakout sessions, and you should have received that via email as well as in a calendar invitation. But at 1 o'clock, we'll be back in this, virtual plenary meeting. So you come back to this same link at 1 p.m. for our report out, the discussion time, and then for some important announcements. And if there aren't any questions, this is the time when you all get to hop off this call and then hop on into the breakout sessions. Any questions that we have right now?
Sorry, no questions.
Okay. Sorry. All right, well, that's it for right now, everybody. If you do have any issues right now, start hopping off and you can get into the breakout groups. If you don't have your breakout group link or you can't remember which one you're in, you can just stay on the call right now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I will, so just wave at me and we will get you sent off on your way.